Hello guys, today I'm doing my first ever Iceberg video, which will be the CandyMan Iceberg, made by user Kenzie3 on Reddit. And for people who don't know what an iceberg is, it's basically at the top of the iceberg is the well-known trivia that people know. Then the further we go down the iceberg, the further the trivia won't be known and obscure. So we have 4 tiers to get through. So we should start with tier 1. CandyMan Farewell to the Flesh. CandyMan Farewell to the Flesh is the second film in the Tony Todd trilogy after CandyMan. It follows a New Orleans school teacher who finds herself targeted by the Candyman. Unlike with the first one, the film received negative reviews from critics and did less in the box office as well, only doing $13.9 million during the film's run. And the film was followed by a third film titled CandyMan 3: Day of the Dead. Philip Glass. Philip Glass is a composer who's well known for doing the score for the OG Candyman and CandyMan Farewell to the Flesh. But he didn't do the score for CandyMan 3: Day of the Dead and 2021 Candyman. Those were done by different composers. Tony Todd. Tony Todd is an actor who's well known in the horror community for playing Candyman in the first 3 Candyman films, and even appeared in 2021's Candyman, but only in a cameo though, and in my opinion did great as Candyman even if the films weren't good. But sadly on November 6, 2024, Tony Todd passed away from stomach cancer in his home in Marina del Rey, California. Rest in peace, Tony Todd, you were amazing. CandyMan Day of the Dead. CandyMan Day of the Dead is the third film in the series and was released in 1999, directed by Turi Meyer. It didn't get a theatrical release and was instead released direct-to-video. It follows Carolyn, who was the daughter of Annie Torrent and a descendant of the Candyman from the second film, as she finds herself targeted by the Candyman on the eve of the Day of the Dead. This one wasn't received well as well, having a 7% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. 2021 Reboot. CandyMan 2021 was released in August 2021 and is the 4th and recent film in the series. Directed by Nia Da Costa, who also made The Marvels. It's a direct sequel to Candyman 1992 and is set between Candyman Farewell to the Flesh and Candyman 3: Day of the Dead. It follows an artist named Anthony McCoy, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, discovering the story from the first film and him eventually becoming the Candyman. The film was received generally positive reviews from critics, who praised Acosta's direction, visual style, and the blend of social commentary with horror. It also did well in the box office, as it did $77.4 million on a budget of $25 million. For reference, the OG Candyman only did $25.8 million in the box office. So by that count, 2021's Candyman did 3 times more than the OG Candyman in the box office. And the film was the last time that we saw Tony Todd as Candyman before he passed away in 2024. Clive Barker. Clive Barker is an English writer, filmmaker, and visual artist who's well known for creating Candyman in his book anthology Books of Blood, with the chapter titled The Forbiddens, which was published in 1984 till 1985, 8 years before it got adapted into the Candyman film that we know and love. He's also well known for making another book that got turned into a franchise, that being The Hellbound Heart, which introduces Pinhead and the Lament configuration and the Cenobites. So yeah, that's a cool fun fact. Be My Victim. Be My Victim is a quote in the OG film when Candyman hypnotizes Helen Lyle in a parking garage. Here's the part of the clip.
Be my victim. Be my victim.
The only other time he says "be my victim" was in Candyman 3: Day of the Dead, when he said it to Carolyn McKeever. But he doesn't say in Candyman Farewell to the Flesh, but he does say a variant of the phrase, that being "be my witness," and the phrase is completely absent from Candyman 2021. Say his name 5 times. In the series, the method on how Candyman comes alive and starts his killing is to say his name 5 times in front of a mirror. And it was introduced as a movie thing, and that in the book, saying his name doesn't really exist, and he just appears in the book without having to say his name 5 times. Now that tier 1 is finished. Let's head to the next tier. Tier 2. Daniel Robitaille. So Candyman actually has an actual name, that being Daniel Robitaille, who was born the late 1800s in New Orleans, and was the son of a slave, and who also had a talent of painting. And when he was in his early mid-20s, he had been hired by a wealthy landowner to paint a portrait capturing his daughter's virginal beauty. And during the time him and the daughter of the wealthy landowner, named Carolyn, began to fall in love, which results in Carolyn becoming pregnant and naming their firstborn Iceberg. After Carolyn's father found out about their relationship, he ordered a few of the townspeople to hunt Daniel down. They then find him and cut off his hand and put a hook instead. They then smeared honey all over him so that the bees would eat the honey and kill him. As they were chanting Candyman at him, the bees came to attack Daniel, and the townspeople fled from the scene, but then returned after a few hours and are shocked to see that he's still alive. Carolyn then notices what's happening and runs into the crowd while trying to stop any further harm to Daniel, but fails. Her father then takes a mirror and lets Daniel look at himself, and he looks in the mirror and says Candyman before dying from his injuries. Carolyn then takes her dad's mirror and runs off with it before seeing Daniel's face in the mirror and deciding to keep it as a prized possession of hers. Also, when the racist townspeople were chanting Candyman to Daniel, we do get the origin of another one of his phrases, which takes us to sweets to the sweet. So in the same scene where the townspeople were chanting Candyman at him, one of the ladies tells him this, that would be another phrase associated with Candyman. So that's how that phrase came to be, which appears in some way in the entire series. From graffiti in the first film to it being used in promotional material for the 2021 Candyman film. NECA. So NECA, or the National Entertainment Collectibles Association, is an American manufacturer of collectibles, with its products being targeted towards action figure and toy enthusiasts, and they have made toys for Candyman, more specifically Candyman Farewell to the Flesh, and it's still available to buy online, on Amazon, or eBay, or anywhere that sells them. Candy Woman Hypnotism. So for this one, I don't know what it means, but I presume that it's referring to during the filming of the first film, actress Virginia Madsen, who plays Helen Lyle, was placed under hypnosis. However, it had to stop because she began to lose her memory. Funko Pops. So with any film, Funko have made Funko Pops of many films, and they have done Funko Pops for Candyman, more specifically with 2021's Candyman, which has 3 Funko Pops, Sherman Fields, then the 2 versions of Candyman, one with the bees and the other without the bees, and those Funko Pops can be found anywhere online where they sell them. Arrow. So in February 2022, it was announced that Arrow, which is a British independent film distributor, would release a limited edition 4K Ultra HD upgrade only for the UK, and would be released in May 2022, and would include all of these that are on screen, which included some of the things from when Arrow released a Blu-ray version in October 2018. Shout Factory. So a week before Arrow released the limited edition Blu-ray version, it was announced that a collector's edition of the OG film would be released in November 2018 in America by Scream Factory, which is a subsidiary of Shout Factory. The set would contain a newly remastered 2K restoration from a new 4K scan, and a number of new special features, including an unrated cut, commentaries, and featurettes. Then a 4K edition was released in the United States and Canada on May 24, 2022 via Scream Factory. Scream Factory has also released the other films, such as when it released the Blu-ray version of Candyman Farewell to the Flesh in January 2015, which included an audio commentary with director Condon, among other bonus materials, but didn't release anything for Candyman Day of the Dead and 2021's Candyman. Now that Tier 2 is finished, let's head to the next tier. Tier 3. Candyman was originally set in Liverpool. So originally, when the film was being written, it was originally gonna take place in the UK, and more specifically in Liverpool. Due to that, Clive Barker was born and raised in Liverpool, and that the book that Candyman originated was about segregation and the culture of the poor urban areas. But director Bernard Rose was so shocked by Chicago's dynamic architecture and large amount of prejudice that he decided to change the Liverpool location to Chicago for the film. So yeah, Candyman would have been British if it took place in Liverpool. Imagine that. Mego. So Mego since 1971 have made licensed action figures associated with TV shows and movies, comics and celebrities, and many more. But in 1982 Mego filed for bankruptcy, but have returned in 2018, and apparently have made CandyMan action figures. But the only source I could find about it is from the website of the Mego Museum, and it reporting about the first look of the CandyMan action figure in November 2020. And if you're asking, yes, they're still available to buy online on anywhere where they sell them. Eddie Murphy. So originally, when they were trying to find someone to cast as CandyMan, the original choice was Eddie Murphy to play CandyMan, but the filmmakers could not afford him, so Tony Todd was given the role instead. So in an alternative universe, Donkey from Shrek, Mushu from Mulan, and CandyMan would have been played by the same actor. That would be the oddest reality to live in. Tony Todd was paid $1,000 for each time he was stung. So during the filming of CandyMan, when the bees were being used, Tony Todd negotiated a bonus of $1,000 for each sting he got during filming. And during the entirety of filming, Tony Todd got stung 23 times, so the production had to give him $23,000, which in today's money would be $51,738.52. That's an unbelievable amount of money. Steelbook. So on Amazon you could buy a steelbook version of CandyMan 2021 with the design of the case looking really cool, and even the inside of the case looks great. But as of now, it isn't available to purchase on Amazon, but it is probably available anywhere else. But make sure it's legit and not a scam. Shortened scene. So I presume what it's referring to is when during the scene of CandyMan killing Dr. Burke in front of Helen Lyle, the shots where blood was spurted at her had to be shortened to get an R rating. If it's not that, then tell me in the comments. Now that tier 3 is finished, let's head to the final tier. Tier 4. Originally NC-17. So originally the film was gonna be released in theaters as NC-17 due to Dr. Burke's death, but the studio wanted an R rating, so the scene had to be shortened down, so it's eligible for an R rating. CandyMan vs. Leprechaun. So, in the early to mid-2000s, after the success of Freddy vs. Jason, Miramax wanted to create a CandyMan vs. Hellraiser crossover film, but Clive Barker, who is the originator of both franchises, had recommended against it. So they also considered a crossover film with the Leprechaun series. But Tony Todd immediately declined to participate in such a project, saying he had too much respect for his character to see him used for such a purpose. To be honest, a Chucky vs. Leprechaun film would work way better than CandyMan vs. Leprechaun. So that's the end of that Iceberg. I hope you liked it. And yes, it was a long video, and it took me a while to make it. And if this does well, I'll do more Icebergs, but they won't be frequent as it takes time to make the Iceberg videos. So until we meet again, I'm Justin JT, and be fun people.